Hello and welcome back to E.G. the Virgo as we continue with our story, An Unusual Kind, That 1%, which is also based on actual experiences and theories. Now, I did add a little title to, because there's going to be more than one volume. So if there's going to be 2 to 3 multiple volumes, put it that way, we got to name these books of volumes. And with the help of Mrs. or Miss Judea Gresham, we came up with One Life, 5 Generations, An Unusual Kind, That 1%. And so now that we've gotten that out the way, let me go ahead and read these excerpts for YouTube. And then we can get right into the story of chapter 3. It has taken us so long, so I don't want to waste any time. This story includes entertaining, fictional, and non-fictional images, animation, videos, and music by artists and photographers unrelated and in no way were created for this particular story and or documentary. Some names, dates, and times were changed to protect the privacy and identities of the characters within the story. This is still volume 1. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. The source is from Circular 92, Copyright Law of the United States, 17 U.S.C., Section 107. Finally, we now can get into Chapter 3, In the Beginning when Eve was Born. Okay. How God made certain. This is in the beginning when Eve was born. How God made certain, in the name of Jesus Christ, to prepare and clear a modest and humble future road, which will be paved with many necessary tests, challenging lessons, rewards, and blessings for Eve's arrival to this strange new world, as she develops, dwells within it, and journeys through life's unfamiliar pastures. Much was also going on during the 60s when Eve was born. Many blood trails were created and conceived of evil, but born, developed, and immunized with God's goodness and blessings. God will always prevail, no matter what. Just shy of Eve's father finishing up in the military, he had earned his bachelor's degree in engineering. And instead of going back to Delaware, Eve's father relocated to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the late 50s, where he would later first meet Eve's mother about the time of 1965 in an old TV repair shop where both Eve's parents worked for a brief moment in time. Eve's mother had relocated to Philadelphia in the early 50s with her mother and grandmother, which they would eventually become Eve's grandmother and great-grandmother. Both of Eve's parents were very intelligent, creative, hardworking, understanding, punctual, self-respecting, caring, compassionate, courteous, respectful, fun, loving, and religious people. After meeting one another. Like most new couples, when they had the time to spare, E's parents went out on dates such as having dinner, dancing, or just simply visiting each other at their own homes and enjoying some quality time on their couches, talking, laughing, or watching TV. The pair got along great. Fast forward through some of life's cycles. After quite a bit of time had gone by of the two dating and falling into a committed relationship, E's mother began feeling sick and nauseated every day, in addition to sometimes experiencing fainting spells, and felt more tired than usual. Because E's mother was already familiar with morning sickness, she was more than well aware of this sickness she was experiencing. She would mostly feel this sickness in the mornings. It was at this point E's mother went to the doctors for a full medical checkup and found that she was correct about why she was getting sick. E's mother was pregnant with E. E was conceived sometime during December of 1966. During the entire pregnancy, E's mother had a very hard time carrying E. E's mother was sick and bedridden almost her entire pregnancy with E. Although E's mother stated she was sort of sick when she was pregnant with E's big brother, she said out of her 4 children, being pregnant with E was her hardest, challenging, and most unusual pregnancy. One day, in mid-September of 1967, heading to the doctors for a regularly scheduled maternity visit on a Philadelphia city bus, E's mother began to feel some discomfort with her pregnancy. E's mother slowly and carefully exited the city bus, which let her off at a bus stop right in front of the hospital where the doctor's office was located. E's mother slowly walked into the doctor's office in the hospital, barely lifting her feet with each step. E's mother was already 9 months pregnant at the time. E's mother was petite in stature, and she was only 4'11" in height. But because E's mother's stomach was so big, her stomach felt like an iron weight to her. After finally being called in from the waiting area to see the doctor, E's mother had explained to the doctor she really wasn't feeling well. The doctor advised E's mother that's because she was 9 months pregnant, which is September 1967, and could have the baby at any time. So the doctor advised E's mother to go back home and get off of her feet because the next visit to the hospital would be her delivering E. E's mother slowly left the hospital to go back to the bus stop and wait on the next city bus to take her back home. As E's mother reached the city bus stop in front of the hospital's front main doors, E's mother could hardly stand on her own 2 feet. As E's mother struggled to stand while holding herself up by leaning on the outside brick wall of the hospital building. After 5 minutes of waiting or for another city bus to arrive, which finally did arrive half full with other passengers, E's mother slowly dragged her feet to move towards the city bus, and as the bus driver held the doors open for her, he was looking at E's mother with great concern due to her being pregnant and looking as though she couldn't go a step further carrying her baby. The people who were already on the bus was looking out their windows with great concern as well. One of the people on the bus, who sat directly behind the driver, said in a low voice tone that only the driver could hear, or so that only the driver could hear them. "That lady looks like she's going into labor." The driver nodded in agreement with the lady sitting behind him as he carefully watched E's mother take hold of the step railing inside the bus's main entrance in order to pull herself up to the first bottom step. E's mother used all her strength just to get her right leg on the step of the bus. As soon as she successfully got her right foot planted on the first step, she used even more strength to get her left leg up along with the rest of her body. After finally getting both feet planted on the first bottom step of the bus, E's mother paused for a second just to gather more strength and willpower to make it up the next two steps, and then, without saying a word, looked up at the bus driver with a very drained and exhausted look on her face. The driver and the people were understanding and patient with waiting for E's mother to get on the bus and be safely seated. A middle-aged gentleman who sat in one of the two front seats of the first row, across from the lady who told the driver she thought E's mother was going into labor, had begun preparing himself to get up and offer E's mother his seat so she could immediately sit down as soon as she got to the top of the third step of the bus. Once E's mother mustered up more strength to take on the second step of the bus, the driver put the bus in emergency park and stood up from his driver's seat and walked over to E's mother to give her a helping hand as the others, or other people on the bus, continued looking on with concern while still seated in their seats. The expression on E's mother's face showed the driver E's mother was very appreciative of his help. As he extended his arm down towards her for her to grab hold of his hand to help try to pull her up to the second step, E's mother suddenly stopped trying and looked at the driver in great distress. The driver then looked at E's mother in wonder as to why she stopped trying. Just then, E's mother's water broke while she was still standing on the first step of the bus. In shock, the driver could see the water flowing and running down E's mother's legs onto the bottom step of the bus and down to the sidewalk curbing from under her maternity dress. The driver quickly explained to everyone on the bus what had just happened and that if they could be patient with him while he quickly helped her back into the hospital for immediate medical attention. Everyone on the bus was really concerned and agreed it would be no problem for them to wait as he helped E's mother off the first step of the bus and back into the hospital with post haste. The gentleman who was prepared to give up his seat for E's mother also rushed out of his seat to assist the driver with getting E's mother back in the hospital for some immediate medical help. Upon the two men entering the hospital with the driver carrying E's mother, who was cradled in his arms, both men yelled out for help to any and all hospital staff who could hear them. The two men yelled out, "This woman's pregnant and her water just broke and she's about to have her baby." Everyone in the hospital immediately stopped what they were doing to listen to the two men yelling for help while holding E's mother. And after realizing what the two men had said, the hospital staff reacted as if they were on a military ship and someone yelled out, "Mayday, Mayday, all hands on deck." The hospital staff immediately called out an emergency code to all doctors over the hospital intercom and ran and grabbed a bed to put E's mother on. After putting her on the bed and quickly wheeling her off to the delivery room, the driver and the other gentleman explained to the hospital staff who they were and that they needed to leave to get back on the city bus, which was still parked with its hazard lights on, flashing, and its engine running in front of the hospital with other patrons still waiting on the bus. 30 minutes later, E was born, September 14th, 1967. After the hospital notified E's mother's emergency contacts by phone, which they already had on file, they admitted E's mother to the intensive care unit, ICU, where she could recover because E's mother was abnormally weak after giving natural birth to E. E's mother was totally out of it and exhausted. She had only seen E for about 5 seconds after E was born before she fell asleep due to extreme exhaustion. The nurses had taken E back to the infant ward in the hospital while the doctors continued running tests and working on E's mother to see if she was okay. After running tests on E's mother, who was still asleep, the doctors quietly closed the hospital room door where E's mother was while they sent her tests to an internal lab to have them examined for results. At the time, because E still had not been named yet, nor giving a social security number, for identity purposes only, one of the hospital care nurses gave E the nickname Leah until she could be formally named by her mother or father. The nurse who came up with E's nickname said she had 2 boys and no girls of her own, and she always wanted to name her first daughter Leah after her best friend. Meanwhile, E's father was finally able to make it into the hospital. After the doctors confirmed his identity and that he was E's biological father, he was immediately taken to the infant ward where E was so he could see her. After excitedly playing and enjoying some time holding, talking, and playing with E, he was taken to the doctor's office to go over some legal paperwork for E and E's mother. While in the doctor's office, the doctor asked E's father if he and the mother had a name picked out for E. The father said before he knew E was a girl, they thought for sure E would have been a boy. And so they only had a boy's name picked out, which was Elijah. But because E was a girl, E's father changed the spelling of E's name to Elijah, which was pronounced as Elijah, and that's the name that was put on E's birth certificate. Uncannily, E's real name was almost like the nickname the nurse gave E. Moving on, while E's father was still working on paperwork in the doctor's office, E's mother had already been awake for about an hour. The nurses were going in and out of E's mother's room, hospital room, to continue checking her vital signs because E's mother, for some reason, still wasn't able to speak. All E's mother could do was lay in bed with her eyes open and watch what the nurses were doing and listen to what they were saying. But none of them realized E's mother was trying to tell them something because she was still very weak and couldn't really move much at all. While they were still waiting on E's mother's test results and E's father was still preoccupied with paperwork, a janitor entered E's mother's room to check the trash cans, do the floors, and clean the bathroom. While the janitor was in E's mother's room, he noticed E's mother was just strangely staring at him, which prompted him to go over to E's mother, who had faint breathing, and asked if she needed something. When he noticed all E's mother could do was move her eyes and head, he told E's mother to nod if he says what she might want, and E's mother nodded her head to show she understood him. Then the janitor began calling out different things she might want. The first thing he said was bathroom. E's mother did nod to that, so the janitor continued naming different things until E's mother finally nodded. Doctor, nurse, baby, family, and phone. So when E's mother didn't nod to any of those things, the janitor rubbed his head because he felt helpless to be able to help E's mother and felt he needed to go and get a nurse or a doctor to come to the room. Just as the janitor was about to turn and leave, he saw E's mother's eyes moving fast and vigorously as though she was anxiously trying to get his attention before he left. So the janitor looked firmly at E's mother's eyes and saw her eyes kept cutting towards the direction of her bedside table. The janitor looked at the table and said, "Table?" And E's mother nodded with excitement. The janitor looked at the table again and saw nothing on it but the phone and a cup. He knew it couldn't have been the phone because she had not nodded to it when he said it to her before. So the janitor said, "Cup," and E's mother firmly nodded her head several times. Then the janitor picked up the cup and saw nothing was in it. Then the janitor saw E's mother still looking at him, and the janitor said, "Water?" And E's mother rapidly began nodding her head to let the janitor know she was desperately needing some water. The janitor was happy he got it right and had taken the cup to the bathroom, washed his hands, rinsed out the cup with warm water, ran some cold water in the cup, and had taken it over to E's mother. Knowing she couldn't possibly hold the cup of water up by herself due to the state she was in, the janitor gently slid his hand under her head and slowly lifted her head so that she could take small sips of water from the cup. E's mother began sipping the water like she had been stranded in the desert for days. After a few minutes and quite a few sips of water, E's mother slowly worked up the strength to say thank you to the janitor. After the janitor said, "You're welcome," he said he was going to go get a nurse and let them know what she wanted and that she had spoken. As the janitor was leaving the room, the doctor was entering the room at the same time, along with E's father. The janitor had taken that opportunity to tell the doctor everything he had done to communicate with E's mother, what E's mother wanted, and that she had spoken to him by telling him thank you. The doctor was embarrassingly amazed because the nurse had been going in and out, or shall we say the nurses had been going in and out of E's mother's room for hours, and at no time was he ever informed that her eyes were even opened. The doctor had a very disturbing look on his face at the realization that the nurses weren't really doing their jobs, as he thanked the janitor. E's father, who stood every bit of 6'4" and about 250 pounds, looked sternly at the doctor's expression as the janitor told his story about E's mother, and with great concern asked the doctor, were the nurses just continuing to check E's mother's vital signs to see if or when she was going to die, because the nurses didn't take an extra little time, effort, or care the way the janitor had? Being the professional the doctor was, he politely bypassed E's father's question by stating he was happy to see E's mother was awake and responsive enough for him to go over her test results, which showed E's mother was critically dehydrated and was found to have had uterine cancer throughout her entire pregnancy with E. She lost so much blood giving birth that she would need a blood transfusion right away. Seeing that E's mother was regaining her abilities and strength, the doctor pleasantly asked E's mother if she was ready to see and hold her beautiful newborn baby girl. E's mother nodded and quietly answered yes. The doctor called the head nurse into the room to instruct her to go and get E from the infant ward and bring E to her mother. He also asked the head nurse for the chart of all the care nurses who were assigned to E's mother's room to keep check on her care and health status. Additionally, the doctor also asked the head nurse to begin prepping E's mother for an immediate full hysterectomy to take place the next morning, and to start an IV to get some liquids and electrolytes back into E's mother's body. The head nurse agreed, but looked puzzled about the doctor requesting a list of all the care nurses who were assigned to the aftercare of E's mother. Moving on, E was 7 pounds and 18 inches long. E was a big baby for children born in the 60s, and especially being born to such a small and petite mother. Most healthy full-term children born during the 60s average weight was between 5 and 6.5 pounds, and averaged from about 15 to 17.5 inches long. But the first thing E's mother noticed was that E was the only one of her 4 children whose eyes were slanted. To E's mother, E looked like a beautiful Japanese doll. Later, after happily gaining knowledge of E's name with no dispute, E's mother would shorten E's birth name, given by E's father, to the nickname E. God not only put good in E's path, but also challenging obstacles as well, to make certain E would be faithfully and physically strong, and to make sure she does what she was chosen, breathed life into, and created to be in this world. In short, like so few others before E, who were also personally tapped by God himself in the name of his only begotten Son, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, E's life path was already written in stone before she was even conceived in her mother's womb, whereas only time would tell of the life path that was set forth for E. However, unbeknownst to anyone just arriving to this new world at such a young age, will soon realize not long after birth that staying on God's predetermined and chosen path set for you for the rest of your life would quickly prove to be life's most challenging obstacle of all. Now remember, let's keep in mind, this documentary and story is about current events and certain events that had taken place during the birth or conception of these individuals who are considered just 1%. So we are going to go through these natural disasters, these incidents, these everything with detail, so you can get a full view, or shall we say full idea, of what is meant when we say these people were born under some very harsh, strange, or certain spectacular situations and positions. And I mean, they were born during some tough times, or some easy times, or some very famous times. And it's just the times that they're born, these things are happening. So anyway, moving right along. E was born September 14th, 1967 in Philadelphia, PA. Hurricane Dorian hit from September 17th through the 18th, 1967. September 1967, this is the actual preliminary report. Dora was one of the most erratic storms ever observed. If one goes back to its beginning as a wave cyclone, they would see Doria's intensity was variable as cold or dry air entered its circulation. It moved in every direction around the compass. Circulation was first observed around a cold front that allowed for pressure in the area off the northeast Florida coast on September 4th. It drifted around for 3 days in a small area radius of about 100 miles, centered 250 miles east of Jacksonville, Florida. On the 7th of September, it was at one of its lowest pressures. The center at that time was about 50 to 60 miles north of the Grand Bahamas Island. Dorian reached tropical storm intensity on September 9th of about 100 miles east of Cape Kennedy, and had began moving more rapidly toward the northeast. Dorian reached hurricane intensity and passed about 100 miles southeast of the North Carolina Capes on the 10th of September, 1967. In continuing, the following day, cold air entered its circulation, causing its intensity to diminish to less than hurricane force as it moved further east. Dorian warmed again on the 12th as it slowed up its movement and then reached hurricane force once more. The surface over the New England area caused Dorian to turn toward the west, and it continued as a hurricane to in a few miles of the Virginia Capes on September 16th. Cold and dry air moved over colder water, and a large portion of Dorian circulated over land. It then weakened rapidly and turned towards the south. Hurricane warnings remained in effect because of high tides and rough seas, even though Dorian no longer had hurricane force winds. In the Atlantic coastal area where it had begun weakening resulted in minor damages. The weakened center reached land near the Virginia North Carolina border and continued southward across the North Carolina Capes and back to sea on September 17th. It continued southward and then eastward as it began getting more weaker, but was still recognizable 4 or 5 days later south of Bermuda. Momentarily jumping ahead in time, how unusual for a Hurricane Dorian, Category 5, 52 years later, to hit Florida, the Carolinas, the Capes, and Bahamas again, but this time around also including Atlantic Canada from September 3rd through the 10th of 2019, with almost the same name, strength, and the same behavior and timing as Hurricane Dorian, which hit September of 1967, the same year Eve was born. But Dorian would have far more damage and fatalities than Dorian. Hurricane Dorian actually began as a Category 1 August 27, 2019, and reached a Category 4 on August 29, 2019, and sadly pounded the Bahamas for about a day or so before moving on to Tampa, Florida in September of 2019. Things that make you go, You see, and again, this is the same thing as, you got two hurricanes 52 years apart with almost the same name, and crazy enough, almost took the same route and almost did the same damage. This is what we were speaking about when we call these one percenters, the times that they were born. Remember, this is still during a time when she was just an infant. Eve was just an infant.
Right now. That's the water hitting my frontal window, which is extremely high, and this is the water by my back door and glass. So this is what I'm facing at the moment. Hey. You don't mind the property, we just want to put the knives
What would you say? As you can tell, we're going to need a lot of support after this hurricane is over.
As we forewarned, a lot was going on during the times that Eve was being prepared for birth and during the time she was born. The 60s was something else. It was, I don't know, like coming in like a lion and going out like a lion, as opposed to coming in like a lamb and going out like a lion, which is what they say about the month of May. May come in like a lamb, go out like a lion. What is it? April showers bring May flowers, things. No, it's March. March comes in like a lamb, go out like a lion. April showers bring May flowers. Okay, so again, that's just beside the point. Okay, so the whole point I was really trying to make was it's a lot. There was a lot going on, and the bloodshed, the struggles, the challenges, you will feel it all. All of this during the time Eve was born and up to 1 or 2 years or so after she was born. This is the most critical things that were going on. And this is what we're going to dig into. Now, there was another movement going on for quite some time, and that movement was being led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. 7 months after Eve was born, September 14th, 1967, a Republican Baptist minister, Nobel Peace Prize winner, and greatest civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was assassinated on April 4th, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee. During these civil rights marches and movement from 1955 to his assassination in 1968, 13 years, nearly 250,000 to 300,000 people total marched, the largest civil rights movement ever recorded in American history. And while the majority were blacks, at least about 25% of them marching with the blacks were white. About 60,000 white people also marched in support of the civil rights movement with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. over the 13-year time span. Also, during this time, there was another civil rights leader and activist named Malcolm X, who was also assassinated February 21st, 1965, while making a public speech in New York City, New York. And a music artist named Bob Marley of Jamaica, who sung about the same genre that the civil rights leaders were preaching about. It is also believed the 60s changed a lot about what America was before to make it possible for the many people who continue to survive today in America. So yes, indeed, there was a lot going on in the 60s at the time God was creating Eve and preparing her to later be born into this world. Now keep in mind, this was a song that they would sing as they were marching in this civil rights movement. Again, during the time that Eve's mother was born. Also take notice of that bridge. That Edmund Bridge, that bridge is located in Alabama. And as you see, the many people who were marching, and these are just different screenshots of showing you this civil rights march. Also, during this time, once again, satanic evil spirits decided to throw a tantrum of disapproval and show its ugly face by trying to stop Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s civil rights march and movement. And this, my viewers, these are real photos of what they called the Ku Klux Klan, or people shortened it to KKK. I mean, it was, people in the police that were part of this KKK movement, because the KKK was moving against it. All of this chaos was going on during the time that Eve was born. All of this. I'm not saying she was the only child born. We know that wasn't. But these are these one percenters that, for some reason, end up in these sort of chaotic times. I mean, it's not just a little bit of stuff going on. It's quite a bit of stuff going on. And we can even, go on the way back to the hurricane. I mean, that was the start of it, right there. Additionally, there was another prominent individual during Eve's first year on this earth, and that person was Robert Francis Kennedy, born November 20th, 1925, also known as RFK. He was an American politician and lawyer who served as the 64th U.S. Attorney General, and from January 1961 to September 1964, and as a U.S. Senator from New York from January 1965 until his assassination on June 6, 1968. June 6 was also Eve's great-grandmother's birthday on Eve's mother's side of the family. The same great-grandmother that took care of Eve's mother until she was a young adult of 18 years old in New Haven, Connecticut. Except Eve's great-grandmother was born in 1896, 72 years before Senator RFK was assassinated and 29 years his elder. Senator RFK was also the brother to the November 22nd, 1963 assassinated President John F. Kennedy, also known as JFK, and the father of the current 2025 U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert Francis Kennedy Jr., who began his career as an assistant district attorney in Manhattan, New York. With the exception of RFK and his son, MLK Jr. and JFK both have many streets, schools, important government buildings, and airports named after them. Eve was born during these very serious changes for the U.S., changes that would make permanent marks in America and therefore would forever be changed. From Eve's great-grandparents on both her mother's and father's side of the family on down to Eve, each one of them were all born during significant times and happenings that would somehow forever change America as well as the rest of the world, which is further proof of why the unusual kinds only make up for 1% of the world. Why they are who they are, no matter where or when they're born. They will always be part of that 1%. Now that we have the where, when, and how, we still need the why. But to find the why, as in what's their purpose in life and their importance to this world for having to be born of that 1%, we must continue the journey with this story documentary. Further, the purpose of the Civil Rights Movement and/or March was a true and genuine protest to help Black Americans gain freedom from national oppression, equal voting rights, jobs, fair working wages, equal justice, decent housing, equal educational opportunities, desegregated schools, and so much more. Many great laws were federally implemented as a result of the civil rights movement, as well as new national holiday recognitions and historical human legends like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The movement also helped many poor white class Americans. Although the movement was primarily for the advancement of black Americans, everyone in America somehow benefited from the movement, just as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wanted. Additionally, during the year he was born, Israel was successful in its reunification of East and Western Jerusalem. They declared their independence from Egypt and Jordan and later passed a law on May 12, 1968, exactly 1 month and 8 days after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, claiming their Independence Day is to be celebrated and commemorated as Jerusalem Day. 1967 was also the year Israel came under heavy attack, fought back hard, and won, just as God promised they would over 3,000 years prior. Was this war and its outcome not prophesied about in the Holy Bible? Yes, it was. Later, a future U.S. president by the name of Donald J. Trump would then add the icing on the cake of victory for Israel on December 6, 2017, by publicly announcing and officially recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. 2 long, hard independence and civil rights fights worth fighting for had finally been won through the strength and blood of Jesus and the blessings of God. But unbeknownst to the 1967 Israel and the 1960s civil rights activists, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and others alike, another fight would be lurking in America's future for them and the people to still have to overcome someday, which was the song that Martin Luther King and them would sing during their march, "We shall overcome someday." Just to let you see how serious and how life-changing these events were, I'm going to also let you hear this brief little 3.5-minute speech that Dr. Martin Luther King did on August 28th, 1963. It was a very famous, hopeful, spiritually inspired, prophetic, and notorious civil rights speech for all Americans, not just blacks, which had taken place on the grounds of the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C., and why all the evil people wanted him dead. It was all because of his speech, his actions, and actually the "I Have a Dream" speech. And you have to listen very closely to his speech, because this "I Have a Dream" speech was totally and spiritually inspired.
One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
This was the funeral viewing for Dr. Martin Luther King, who was assassinated on April 4th, 1968. 1 year after E was born. Almost 1 year. He was about 7 months old, I think. This is the end of chapter 3, in the beginning when E was born. And I'm going to let you hear this song called Lift Every Voice and Sing. And this song also was a lot of what people sung, mostly black people sung in the 60s. They, used it in choirs, and they still sing it to this very day. But if you look at everything going on today, did Martin Luther King's speech not touch on a lot of those different states? This is just something for you to think about and look at as we close out this chapter here of when E was born. And if you notice, it was a pretty long chapter. One day, evil people in this generation will learn that their arms are too short to box with God.
Every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing, sing, sing the songs full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing, sing the song full of the hope that the present has brought us. They sing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on. Is
We will all join again as we get ready for chapter 4, which is Tomboy Tagalong. This is as Eve begins her early developmental years. So I would like to close out, and I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope it wasn't too boring. I know there was some little mishaps here and there, but we know how that goes. Thing is we're trying to get this message and word out that these 1%ers are born through some very difficult, tough, life-changing, and shall we say, earth-changing times. And until then, you all have a blessed day.